All right, no problem. We had a good week of practice and open week, and players were off just like the last open week. And had practice last night, off day today, back at it this week, and just getting ready for the next game against TCU, a team that I don't think their record exemplifies the type of team they are, playing really well on defense and trying to run the football and spread you out and throw it a little bit on offense. I've got a good return game. So we'll definitely have our work cut out for us. We need a good week of practice, and our plans haven't changed. We need to be as sound as possible in the kicking game, limit big plays on defense, and take care of the ball on offense. So we'll work hard on that this week.
What have you seen on film that makes them so successful on defense?
Oh, their schemes hadn't changed. It's like most teams in our league. It stays the same, but they understand they're in the right spot on defense, and they've got some guys that can get to you in a four-man rush. Their backers understand gap responsibility. Their corners are good players, and their safeties are good tacklers.
Are they as physical defensively as anybody you're going to play?
Well, I know up to this point, and they're as good a defense and as physical a defense from what I see on tape as anybody that we've seen up to this point.
Mike, your tempo into the K-State game, you sped it up and it really worked well. You talked in the offseason, you wanted to play faster. You've done that a little, but not as much as maybe we thought you would. What's the decision on when to play fast, when not, how much you've played fast? How do you stand on that?
Well, we lost 3 receivers for the last game, and so it limited our ability to play fast. There's times in the game where we can move really quickly, and then based on matchups and what we think gives us the best chance to score points, it limits us. So it varies some week to week.
J.W., quarterback 4 games last season. Compare the way he played those 4 games with the way he's played so far this season, knowing the changes around him. How can you compare him?
He's very similar. He obviously knows more about our offense, but his play's been similar as what it would have been last year.
Has he shown the kind of maturity that you would expect at this point in the season, with the ups and the downs, handling all the adversity and the success?
Yeah, he's doing good. Yeah. He handles what would come with being a quarterback very well.
What are some of those things? What are some of those qualities that you need to show to handle what you're talking about?
Oh, I think anytime that you're a quarterback that you get a lot of credit when you're winning and playing well, and if you're not playing as well as what some people may think you should and you're not as successful, you get too much of the blame.
He's not letting that, I guess, affect his game? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you asked me how he was holding up mentally. I said he's doing great.
Maturity-wise, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking mentally, maturity, it's all the same.
Okay. Leadership-wise, all that stuff is all tied together?
Well, I think each player is different, but he's doing very well. He doesn't let a whole lot bother him. He enjoys the game. He understands his dad's a coach. He's been there. So I think that helps him.
You guys do you see guys follow him as a leader? I mean, is it just natural for that position?
I think everybody's different. You lead through example and hard work, and he's done a really nice job of that since he arrived on campus.
One thing people continually say about TCU's defense, I think you even said it a minute ago, how sound they are. They don't really make a lot of mental mistakes. Is a defense like that less susceptible to a hurry-up offense?
It could go either way. Sometimes you would want to approach it in a hurry and system to try to get them out of what would be normal for the tempo and for their setup. Other times, based on what we would think our strengths are in comparison to their weaknesses, we wouldn't. But they're pretty simple in what they do, in my opinion. They obviously may feel differently, but they do it at a fast pace, and they've been successful at it for a number of years.
they seem to be a little bit of an old-fashioned defense in that the way they play pass defense is they just have a bunch of guys that can cover you.
They cover very well.
They don't let guys run free, so that would seem to.
Yeah, I think they're skilled in that area. Could very well be as skilled as anybody in this league in those positions, and their cover skills are good, very good. And you can look week to week, and you see that when there's been passes completed against them, they're very well thrown footballs, and the receivers stretched out and made nice catches.
Mike, I asked this question with the reference point of my experience covering Oklahoma. A couple of years ago, they had 2 bye weeks, 2 open dates in a 3-week span, and it disrupted everything. You've got 2, I guess, in a 4-week span. How do you manage the disruptions that an open date?
We don't have the answers to that. This is unfamiliar territory for all of us, and so we try to get quality work in, and we don't want to overwork them, and then we want to be able to give them time away, but we don't want to give them too much time away. So I'm not a big fan of it, but as I said several weeks before, it's a hand we've been dealt, and we have come up with a plan, and the plan that we've used, we hope, gives us the best chance for success.
You look at the 2 open dates as you're going into them. You look at it one way, and then as you're finished with them and you're going into the TCU game now and you're done with them, do you look back on that and say we did it right, or we'll have to wait and see how we did it, or the effectiveness of what we did, that kind of thing?
You talking about the game? I mean,
No,
after the
I'm talking
game?
about managing those 2 open dates. As you go into them, you have a perspective on how you want to manage them.
Right.
And then you look back on them and say, we did it the right way, or we should have did this. Or
Just like anything else we would do, yes. We would look back and think, and at times it's hard to figure that out. Sometimes you think you have a reason why your team is excited or not excited or flat, and then you're not sure why. So there's just a lot up in the air. And I think that mature football teams that have mature players in key positions handle those situations very well, and some of them don't. Just depends on who the personnel is.
Jeremy Smith said that he felt like that you guys did more ones-on-ones this past week to kind of keep the intensity up. True, false? Was that part of the plan? Or?
It was the same that we did 2 weeks ago. I wish I could agree with him. I don't know if he was just trying to fill up airtime or he didn't really know. That's why I don't let him talk to you all that very much, because I don't know that he knew.
After the Kansas State
The reps were the same.
Okay.
After the Kansas State game, you suggested that we were going to see a lot of close games and surprises in the Big 12. Then the weekend happens. Why is that happening this year, maybe more than others?
Well, I've shared this with you 3 or 4 years ago, and I said the time's coming, and every year I've said it, and I said it this year, and the reason why is because spread offenses, quarterback play, and 9-game schedules. And the quote I used is to be the future for coaches is a nightmare, and for the fans and the media and people like to watch college football, it's going to be a heck of a deal. But conference play is going to be a battle each week in most cases, in my opinion, no matter who's playing. Unless you have an NFL-type quarterback playing for you, you're susceptible every week based on the other areas that sometimes don't show up if the quarterback that you have playing for your team is an NFL-type player. Otherwise, you're susceptible. If you're poor in the kicking game, you turn the ball over, you got a good chance to lose the game. And I don't just think that that's this conference, as you mentioned. I think it's all across the country.
So a day like Saturday where the OU Texas, I was a surprise to outsiders, and TCU, Baylor, K-State, did any of that surprise you at all?
Again, it's hard for me to speak for other teams. I just know that at Oklahoma State, and what I see, because you asked my opinion, if you have a quarterback that's somewhat close to getting ready to play in the NFL and is that type of player at that particular time, you can overcome a lot of deficiencies with your football team. If you don't have that type of player that's in that position and ready to go, and I used the example this morning on one of the radio shows that I do, I don't remember which one it was, is I watched a few plays of the Missouri game at Georgia, and their quarterback, I think, is a senior now. Well, when he was a freshman and a sophomore, we played against him. I don't remember what year it was. It's too long ago for me to remember, but he made some mistakes, but we knew he was a good player, in our opinion. When we watched him, we thought this guy's got some talent. He's a good player, but he made some mistakes. Turned the ball over a few times in games against us. Well, I watched him the other day. I thought he's a pretty good player. And he's grown to, and he's mature now, and he's got experience. And in my opinion, I thought he played pretty well in a difficult place to play a football game. That's just an example of what I was referring to.
So it sounds like it's paramount to have an NFL quarterback.
Well, they're hard to find. There's only 32 teams. Is that right, 32 in the NFL? So there's only 32 of them in the world for the most part. 90 of them, give or take a few. And that doesn't mean that Texas's quarterback, OU's quarterback, Kansas State's quarterback, Oklahoma State's quarterback, that doesn't mean at some point they can't play at that level. When you play in a college football game and you have an NFL-ready quarterback, you're a different team. You can just look across the country. You see teams from other leagues that people say they do a great job. They're going to win on defense and just manage the game. Then they get an NFL quarterback, and all of a sudden, everybody thinks they're doing great on offense. It's real simple. Same thing in high school.
Is that sort of, the old logic was is that you win games on defense, but is it more true now that maybe you've got to be capable on offense to keep one bust from costing you a game, so to speak, if you get where I'm going? I mean, is that sort of flipped in college football now, where if you don't have guys who can score on offense, your margin of error becomes so much smaller?
I think it's how good you are, how good is your offense. Again, I go back to, there's give or take. Each situation is different. There's really no answer for the questions that come up all the time. If you're really, really good at quarterback and you can score a bunch of points, then you can make more mistakes. If your quarterback is real mature and understands and has a lot of experience, then it's easier to take more chances in the other phases in the game. But if not, you kind of have to manage the game based on what your personnel is. You're speaking offensively, and most teams go as their offense. As their quarterback goes based on his availability with what he can do in the game. Most teams, maybe not. If your defense is really good and can hold everybody to 15 points or less, then I guess it doesn't matter.
Do you feel like you guys have done a good job of doing that, maximizing what your quarterback can do?
Yeah, we're running the same plays we've run here the last 4 years. We're not doing anything different. It's the exact same plays.
Do you consider a definable difference between what Clint could do and what JW can do?
No, they run the same plays.
They run the same plays. I think JW has the reputation of being really good at the zone read and looking at the defensive end and determining what he's going to do. And play calling wise.
Yeah, that's not true. Clint doesn't do it as much as JW, and he's not as fast, but he can execute it fairly well. Clint ran the ball better than what you think last year if you watch him in games. He was an effective runner, kind of surprisingly, and you look up and all of a sudden that was a 14-yard gain, and it kind of looked like it was a 6-yard gain. So he understands all that. I don't think there's any difference there. Now, JW's faster than he is, but I don't think there's any difference in the comparison in how they read those plays.
Levy and Lewis have played a ton of games together, side by side. That's got to be invaluable.
Who, Levy and who?
Caleb Levy and Sean Lewis, side by side together for 1 million games. It's got to be invaluable.
Yeah, those guys have been really good leaders for us and have had good years. They're experienced. Levy used to make a number of mistakes. And over the last couple of years, he's grown, and he's played in a lot of different venues and understands and has developed into a good leader and has played good up to this point.
You said last week you thought this was your best defense in your time as head coach. That's not something you would say lightly, I don't think so.
No, I feel like that this is the best defense that we've had. If we're fortunate enough to continue to stay healthy, I think they play well together. I think the mixture of the positions on that side of the ball, very seldom to the mixture of what is an on and offense, allows for them to have success. We have weaknesses on our defense, and obviously we have strengths. but when they play together, they've played fairly well up to this point.
What does homecoming do to the game day equation?
Not anything for us. There's 50, 60,000 people that'll be here the night before, but for us, it doesn't really affect our pregame and our preparation up to that point.
Can you comment on Ben Grogan and how he bounced back last week?
Well, he I said last week he continued to work hard, and he had kicked well in practices, and he seems to be very stable mentally, and at times, with a freshman at any position, specifically a guy that's out there on his own like a field goal kicker, you would worry about that, but he's handled himself very well up to this point.
The weekend you guys got after pretty good last year. I think they only scored 7 points on offense. Where's he gotten better?
Well, his experience. He's played more games, and he seems to be running ball harder, in my opinion, more physical than maybe last year. Obviously, I haven't really looked and compared the years, but he's got 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, 8 more games under his belt than when we played him last year.
Mike, an old coach once told me that you run what your quarterback can run and what your offensive line can block. What's your perspective on that? And are you running what your offensive line can block and calling what your quarterback can run, that kind of thing?
Yes.
You feel like that's going together well?
No, I think it's a good quote, and it's the same. We're running the same plays we always have, other than the downhill read zone that we put in that we run, but the same plays. The blocking schemes are the same.
How important is that? You said it's a good quote. Maybe how important is that philosophy to have? If you've got a quarterback, you have to do the things that he can do.
I don't know. I don't really know what you're asking me.
You don't want Brandon Whedon running the zone read. You don't want.
That's correct.
Yeah,
No, I'm not trying to be sarcastic. That's why we didn't run it with him. But Clint runs it some, and JW runs it some. But the pass plays that Whedon run are the same ones that we run this year. There's not any pass plays that we had called with Whedon that we don't call, or we haven't called this year. It's the same scheme. We only have about 8 schemes, so it's the same.
But a guy's arm strength or accuracy doesn't dictate what you can or can't do?
The end results make it look a lot better. Just what I was talking about earlier. When you have a player that is, when Whedon played here, early in his career he made a lot of mistakes. When he got into his maybe 8th, 9th, 10th game of his first year and his second year, his body style, his arm strength, his stature allowed him to be an NFL-ready type player. And when he got to that level, he was a different player. And so I guess that's the best way to answer it. I don't know how else to answer that.
Did you see the pick he threw Sunday?
I didn't see any. I didn't see any NFL games. Throw it right to somebody.
Yeah. Well,
I've seen him do that out here too.
Flipped it up in the air and got picked it off.
Right. To answer your question, see, to him, I wouldn't run option. He's not an option runner. But no, Whedon is. He'll do good. He just needs to just hang tight, get some guys around him.
I'm guessing you do not have sympathy for TCU coming here 2 years in a row.
I had to go to places 2 years in a row myself. I'd like for him to have to come here 3 years in a row. I'd like to play here.
Are you a fan of 11 a.m. games, Mike? This will be your third. Iowa State's going to be an 11 a.m. game.
Yeah, I think college football is supposed to be played during the day. And I like to play during the day. If it's 11 or 1 or 2, I think that's the way college football ought to be. So I like to play day games.
The picture from Friday of you up in the stands at the Jinx BA game was a hit on Twitter. Talk about kind of how that came about, and do you enjoy getting to do things like that?
I really would, but it's a violation for me to talk about another school in front of the media. I know you didn't know that, but probably right now after that SI article is not a great time to do it. So
My apologies.
no problem. I would have enjoyed talking about it.
Is it okay to be photographed in that setting?
Mm-hmm.
You're not in trouble for that? Okay.
Not that I know of. I guess I don't think it is. I hadn't thought about that, but it'd be almost impossible to go somewhere nowadays and not be photographed. Good? All right, thanks.